Good. Good. So we've got the I've got that on two screens now. So yeah, just a bit of a welcome from me. Thank you for coming today. As I said, it will be slightly disrupted today because of things like school runs and things like that, but we'll try our best to get through that. Bernie is going to stand in for me while I dash off and get my kids, and I'll be back as quick as I can. The agenda was up on there. We're going to hear from Kevin about the Growth Hub. We're going to hear about the local plan from Nigel. Farstershire will be dealt with by David. There's some discretionary grants to talk about, and Andrew's going to talk to us about that. Then there's going to be an FEP update from Wendy, who's going to join us a little later in the meeting. And then we'll clarify the 2021 stakeholder meeting dates. And obviously there'll be hopefully a bit of time for any other business at the end of the meeting. So on that point, should we get on with the Growth Hub? My personal view, and I was highly supportive of this at the LEP, is that coming out of this, a lot of people will require an awful lot of support and help. And the Growth Hub in Gloucestershire has been great, but more regional centres are the way forward that feed into that central hub. So it's a kind of hub and spoke model, and we should have our own Growth Hub based over Vantage Point. But Kevin, do you want to just bring us up to speed with what's happening and what the plans are there?
Absolutely. Hopefully you can hear me. I just sent a few pictures through to Mickey so that you could sort of see where we're at. A lot of the things that have been going on are the things that you can't see. So the Wi-Fi is fully installed now in what will become the Forest of Dean Growth Hub. We've removed and relocated the PBX room for the whole site, which doesn't sound like a big deal, but actually it is a big deal. And we've actually invested a considerable amount of our own money in brand new broadband control and a VoIP-based telephone system. So that process has been underway. I'm not sticking necessarily to the written script, which you can read while I'm talking, but we've just finished the last structural elements, which is breaking through into the main entrance atrium of the site. I think most of you have probably been to Vantage Point at some point. You'll know we have a main lift shaft, a main atrium. We've broken through that wall now. It's got boxing to protect the other side. We've got to install electric doors there, and there are also 2 more electric doors going into the scheme. They're the most difficult item on the time scale. They're the longest lead time item for some reason. But we're making good progress now. In the first lockdown, we had a situation where effectively the contractors pulled off site, and also we took the view that we couldn't regard the Growth Hub as essential. I think that's, you could argue that there is an essential element for the Growth Hub, but the Growth Hub throughout Gloucester has effectively gone to a virtual offering so that the business community still has support, but the physical Growth Hubs haven't been open. But during this second lockdown period, the Forest of Dean had quite a high level of COVID, and we've actually seen our contractors affected by self-isolation. I think every contractor has had somebody in their team, often the senior manager, go down with COVID or self-isolating because a family member. But despite all of that, we pressed on. So the ceiling grid is throughout the space with the exception of the toilets, and that's because the toilets have to be built before the ceiling goes in. All of the H&V systems are installed. It's all operational. The Wi-Fi is operational. We've installed category 6 cabling for support of things like high-tech printers. We're going to put in a very high quality video conferencing facility in the main meeting room. And we've got a number of monitors coming in soon. Following on from the Growth Hub will be the cafe area and a breakout area. They're slightly separate from the project, but they're linked. Our original concept was to utilize the cafe to generate revenue to offset the running costs. But in fact, we've had to incentivize the catering business to take up the cafe area because COVID has given them such concerns about footfall. Having said that, most of our office tenants indicate that they're coming back in force once the lockdown restrictions are taken away. So we're going to push on and get that cafe area built out. In terms of the space itself, we have if you've been to any of the growth hubs in Gloucestershire, perhaps the Gloucester one or the Cirencester one, you'll be familiar that most of them have something called pods. We have a pod coming on Monday, which is a first item of furniture. That's an acoustic pod with glass doors so that you can talk privately within the pod. You'll also have access to Wi-Fi and power in there. Furniture is the last item on the list that's coming. The incubator office space comprises of what I'll call 2 small, 2 medium, and 2 large offices. So the smaller pair of offices have effectively 1 desk and 1 seat. So they're for an individual. You might get 2 at a push. The intermediate, medium-sized offices, there are 2 of those. They would comfortably seat 2 people with 2 sets of desks. And the third category, the larger office, would comfortably have 3 desks and probably 4. We're proposing before the end of this month to start marketing those offices, even though in the pictures you can see they're not yet constructed. The petitioning elements are going in this month. So if we were to hold this conversation at the end of March, you should see the offices actually existing, installed with doors. The idea of marketing ahead is because, unlike all of the other growth hubs in Gloucestershire, with the exception of Cheltenham, and there are 2 there that are following behind us, with Cheltenham, we're the only commercial entity with a growth hub. So as I probably explained the last time I updated you all, the match funding effectively gives us a £500,000 grant for fit out. That won't be enough, by the way, but that's not the problem of the LEP, but it gives us a £500,000 grant for fit out. But we then have to maintain and operate the facility for 5 years, and we have to staff it. So it's quite important that we have some revenue streams from the growth hub. And one of them is the ability to offer startup businesses office facilities, so a permanent office with at least a commitment for 12 months. So the concept is that if you're a startup business, you can put your name in an office, take the office, you pay a rent that will probably be slightly subsidized. That will go towards the offsetting the cost of the staff and the heating and so on. And then at a point at 12 months from your occupation, we have the option, if there is a waiting list of new startup businesses, to say to that individual or that business, it's time for you to come out of the incubation office and to move to a more permanent office environment, which will be pitched. We'll pitch that at a very similar price point so that they're not penalized by making the transition to a commercial office. I mention this to you now because if you're aware of startup businesses, and there are criteria, it can't be an established business just looking for an office. But if it's a genuine startup business, and as was mentioned earlier, we anticipate there will be people made redundant, or for whatever reason, people who are motivated during this crisis to establish a new business or consultancy. Those type of businesses will be encouraged to perhaps take up space if they want a permanent office. They will also have the opportunity to take out a subscription so that they can utilize the facilities of the growth hub without committing to an office, and use it as a sort of business network, co-working space where they can hopefully meet like-minded individuals who are also in the process of establishing businesses. And that will be another mechanism for some revenue generation to keep the facility going. Setting that aside, the main meeting room is going to be used for seminars, which the Growth Hubs put on a regular basis. At the moment, they're virtual seminars, but in the future, we will be inviting businesses to attend seminars on a varied amount of training and expertise the most popular, I believe, are the ones related to social media, but there will be other areas of business life that will be covered by experts, and there will be a physical opportunity to come and sit in the meeting room and watch those or attend those presentations, whether they're done remotely or in the building. But the other idea we have is to encourage organizations like the FEP, Confederation of Small Businesses, other charitable organizations and public facing organizations to use the facilities as much as they can during normal hours and outside of normal hours, because this will be a 24/7 facility. If we go to the staffing side, we went through quite a convoluted recruiting process, and it came to an end just at the point that the COVID crisis struck. Excuse me. So we had two candidates. One of the candidates decided they would stay with their existing employer because of the COVID crisis, and another one dropped out. So we've started the recruiting process again. That process is underway. We currently have nearly 55 potential candidates with CVs, and we're going to forward those to the Growth Hub for sort of sifting down to about 10 candidates, and those candidates will be interviewed physically, possibly initially by video conference and then a physical interview. And Wendy Jackson from the council is attending, and we have various other people on the interviewing panel from the Growth Hub, and they will be joining us to select the final two candidates for the positions. Outside of the Growth Hub, there's going to be a large deck area. We've had to make a few changes since I last spoke to you, because building control wanted a disabled ramp to the deck area. There was disabled access to the deck area, but the disabled ramp is there because it now becomes a alternate form of escape in the event of a fire, and that's related to a concession that goes back to a fire shutter that we have to install between the atrium and the Growth Hub. So building control have assisted us, but there have to be some concessions, and one of them is that we change the design of the external decking area. There are lots of fire escape points. I'm quite excited about the physical opening of the Growth Hub. I think we will finish it during April. When we're allowed to open it, I'm not quite clear, because there are still COVID restrictions in place. But you can be sure that when we do open it, we will be inviting everybody from this organization to come and take part in the opening, and hopefully show you the facilities and show you what we can do there. I hope I've sort of covered it reasonably accurately, but if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me.
Any questions at all? If we could just have hands raised, or
yeah, Laurie here.
Yep.
Okay, I can't see you because I'm seeing the presentation, but
Okay, well,
that's it.
I've done it on. Just quickly, I'm glad to see the disabled ramp is there. Is that for getting in as well as getting out? Because one of the problems in the past has been, if you wanted to go to a meeting at the Growth Hub, anybody who had any mobility problems had to go right across the other side, go up in the lift, to come across on the fourth or third floor, whatever it was. How easy it's going to be for disabled people to get in?
Lawrence, that's a really good question, because the primary reason that the Growth Hub was moved from building 9 to the ground floor of building 7 here is because of disabled access, and the fact that a disabled person would have been disadvantaged, and it was very difficult to create the lift access practically. So there's no discrimination against disabled people, in the sense that all visitors to the Growth Hub will come in via the main atrium. That's the main entrance for the Growth Hub, and we have a very good, well-established disabled ramp there, and we also have disabled toilets at the entrance point. So the reason I mentioned the deck area is because in the event of a fire, the primary entrance, which is used by disabled and able-bodied people, might be closed with a fire shutter, depending on the point that the fire is taking place. and then there are alternate means of escape. All of the means of escape are usable by disabled people and people in wheelchairs, with the exception of a route that would go outside onto the deck. So now we are going to create a deck ramp so that the disabled people, if they're evacuating the building, have an equal chance of escaping correctly without having to route through an alternate exit point. So it really is, we are going overboard to make sure that this facility is absolutely DDA compliant. There will be disabled spaces in very close proximity. There will be electric charging points. And as I say, the first toilets that you get to when you approach the space are the disabled toilets. So I think it's a real improvement from what we had before.
Thank you. I'm very satisfied with that response.
Thank you, Lawrence. But I would welcome you to evaluate it when it's actually open and come and tell me what you think.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
They won't be shy in coming forward in my experience there, Kevin. But
Good.
Any other questions at all? If I can see some hands. Yeah, Stuart, you got your hand up there.
Great, thanks. Yeah, thanks very much for that presentation, Kevin. That's it's fantastic to see the project coming to life, really. It's just an ongoing offer of support, I guess, from Hartpury. We've got an increasing number of, I guess, entrepreneurial students who are looking at spinning out of Hartpury and developing their own projects and ideas whilst they're at Hartpury. We have an in-house support through our Innovation, Careers and Enterprise sort of hub, which is headed up by my colleague Simon Spooner. And I think at some point it'd be worth a conversation so we can signpost accordingly, and there's a kind of pathway there. You know, so we obviously recruit a lot from the Forest of Dean as well, and I just think there's probably a bit of joining up there. So there's a package of support from both Hartpury and the Growth Hub to give some students who are interested in moving into developing a new business. They're fully aware of the opportunities, but yeah, just delighted to see it coming to fruition, and yeah, as I say, ongoing support. The only other thing I'd add is it was mentioned there about social media events always attract. That's absolutely true in my experience. The other one, from my experience, is funding support. So obviously where businesses can learn and access funding opportunities, that's always a good one for raising awareness of the Growth Hub. But yeah, brilliant. And if we can offer any speakers or what have you in the future, delighted to kind of discuss and support.
Stuart, I would say that you don't know this, but we've got a schedule of stakeholders that we're going to invite individually, and one of them are the students and staff of Hartpury, because we see there could be a good synergy there, particularly for young people who are interested in business or how business develops or how you start a business, but also I hope we'll have an interface with the established business community as well, and even the larger businesses in the forest, because they can get some specialized assistance from the Growth Hub, be it's slightly restricted, but I also think that you're probably aware as a panel that the primary funding for the Growth Hub comes via the LEP from the EU. So it's British money that's gone to the EU, it's come back through the LEP. I have no doubt that whatever government is in power, that they are likely to see the Growth Hub as a mechanism to reach the business community. And I suspect that in the next 5 years, we'll be doing different things than we're doing now. And I would like to think that it will be more of a support for established business, as well as focusing heavily on startup, which is a great thing. It's a great thing, but I think established business needs a bit of help at the moment as well.
Yeah, the Growth Hub should be fully inclusive, and high growth companies as well as startups figure heavily because they tend to get the most support, but established businesses also should be there. So I would support that, Kevin. Bernie, you've got a question there?
Not so much a question, it's a bit just to share a piece of information, because I know you've got Andrew Knott coming. I think he hasn't joined us yet. I can see Wendy's joined us. Andrew will be talking about the business support grants that we've been allocating over the last, well, best part of a year now, isn't it? We also, Wendy can help me out, and Mickey, we've got startup business grants as well. It's what you said, Kevin, about startup businesses. We've allocated, I think is something like, is it 9 now, Wendy?
So I think we've approved 6 in total, Bernie. We've had a lot
Right.
more applications, but we've actually authorised 6 so far. So
And we're still working
making
on
some
some, aren't we?
great, some great progress. So our next closing round is going to be April, I think.
And just to follow that on, I mean, it's noticeable because I'm completely involved with the business support grants, which Andrew will talk about. There are a number of people who are getting through to me in emails and phone calls who have been through the furlough, been made redundant, and then want to start up their own businesses. So any support that they can get, this what we're giving. It's £1,000 we give as a startup grant. And we're looking to extend not the amount, not the individual amount of money, but extend it into next year. We'll see what comes of that. But it's just really in support of what you were saying, Kevin. There are numbers of smaller individual people who've through whatever cause they've decided they want to start up their own small business. So I think any support we can give them would be brilliant.
Okay, thank you, Bernie.
Thank you.
Sarah, and then
Yes.
Philippa, then please.
Thank you. Yeah, Kevin, I just wanted to ask, is the nursery still on site? Women have been affected really, really badly in this, this pandemic. We've got childcare and, their pensions are hit, everything's hit, lots of issues. So there might be lots of startup, female founders and entrepreneurs. And I guess the nursery is still there and that childcare kind of facilities, which is great. That's such a bonus, such a bonus.
The nursery is not only here, but it's thriving. In fact, I just told them that we're giving them permission to extend their external play area, which is quite large, into a wooded area so that they've got trees that the children can go up to. They're safe trees, by the way. They can't climb them. They're too small. But
not like real forest trees.
It's obviously the nursery, Mia Rose Nursery, has got very strict security protocols, and they are made even more strict by COVID. But it would be nice to sort of say to them, when we have this panel perhaps coming to visit the Growth Hub, that I show you that facility, because that was half of the former Xerox Social Club. So there's a heritage here, and I think it really is a wonderful facility. I went into it earlier this week to just talk about this expansion, which we're doing free of charge, I should say. We're giving them the land for free because we see it as something we can give to the community. Just bear with me. We've got a new phone system, so it's going a bit manic. I would just coming back to the comment from Bernie about grants. I'm told by the Growth Hub management that the biggest question they get asked at the Growth Hub is how do you access funding? And of course, the Growth Hub doesn't facilitate funding. It's not one of its, but what it can do is signpost people to the correct areas. It's very encouraging that there are startup businesses in the forest. I've no doubt there are going to be more. And if any of those want to come to me unofficially just to talk about office space or what's going to happen, it can be on a video call at this stage, more than happy to do that. Certainly we'll show you guys the children's nursery we've opened. I've had one of the calls I've had while I've been here, which is typical, isn't it, on a Friday afternoon, but is from a company that's based here that's looking to relocate their head office here, which is very encouraging. And if they do, they may take the other half of the Xerox Social Club, and they've got some exciting plans. So yes, I mean, I think childcare, we have a gymnasium, we will have a cafe. We're trying to do all of these things, and also we're trying to bring electric charging for vehicles, which is off on a tangent, but it does relate to what's going on in the forest with transport needs. We're trying to bring in some charging points to get that going so people can come to work, charge their car, go home, and not pollute the forest.
Yeah, I think for talent attraction and retention, it's just, it's fantastic for large employers, small employers alike. It's just a great facility, and that will really help you keep people and, find people.
Yes.
And work for you.
Just conscious of time. Philippa, and then Leanne.
Hi, thank you. Just a very quick question. I'm new to the group. Hello. Thank you for letting me in. But how are you advertising all this stuff? Because this stuff sounds fantastic. I've lived in the forest now for 3 years. I'm not from here originally. I only know about this because of Sarah, because I know Sarah. But I don't see any of this stuff anywhere else. So my question is, how are we going to get the word out there? Because this is a really fantastic opportunity for the forest. There's loads of really good stuff you're talking about here, but if I hadn't joined this call, I would know nothing about it.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the world is a different place now. Social media is absolutely as important as possible. The people on the call, there's something like 25 people on the call. You know, they'll probably reach somewhere in the region of 2,000 or 3,000 people if they use social media through their network. So it's important to get the messaging right, not to do it too early so that we create disappointment, but to get it right. And I'll work with Wendy and Mickey to be able to actually get that message out as quickly as possible. I know that Vantage Point are, you know, proactively trying to start to talk to people as well. So you know, that's the ways that I see it going.
I did mention that very point in a meeting with, I think it was yesterday, with the Growth Hub, because I have to get, as Wendy knows, because she's also on that group. It's not by chance that you're not seeing a big push, because the Growth Hub are timing the kind of release so that we don't get ahead of the fact that, you know, we have to have staff in place and we have to have the facilities, even if it's to support the staff virtually, and they don't want to sort of do 2 launches. So there will be proper marketing. We will do some, but it will be done as well by the Growth Hub. But you're not seeing it because they're what's the expression? They're sort of keeping things hidden at the moment. But it's not because they don't want to sort of make a song and dance. It's more they want to make sure the timing is correct, and then we will have a launch, and there will be quite a high profile sort of raising of the profile to the business community in the forest and new startups. The libraries will be involved as well. As you know, they're the tier 3 group in this, so that there's tier 3 and then Gloucester is tier 1, and there are various mechanisms that are going to bring this to the business community, and hopefully you'll say, Philippa, that yes, I saw something. I know that Wendy will be doing stuff in the background, and Neil and other people here, but there is kind of method in the madness. But I'm telling you unofficially that we decided we're going to start marketing the offices, because I'm thinking of revenue. It's a bit selfish, but I have to find a way to fund 2 salaries, electric, heating, and so on, wear and tear for 5 years. So I've got a kind of a different agenda. I probably talk too much, but I'm more than happy to take questions from you individually offline at any point if you've got any questions.
We've got 2 quick questions, and then we're going to have to move on, because otherwise we're going to be still here at 6 o'clock tonight. So Leanne, can you go next, please?
Hi, thanks, Neil. Just a quick one. GRCC is commissioned by Forest of Dean District to give funding, guidance and support to the voluntary and community sector. So if you have any voluntary and community sector groups that use the Growth Hub, we will be happy to help them find funding, give them guidance on completing their applications, and also review applications before they submit them.
Thanks very much, Leanne. And Mark, lastly on this topic.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, yep.
Just to say that Dean Radio would be very happy to help with publicising the opening of the hub and anything else. And we do interviews. So bear us in mind. You can contact me and we can arrange something. And we also are looking for advertisers. So it's possible that we might try and come up with some sort of package that would offer your new business tenants a bit of help with their advertising as well.
Thank you, Mark. We'll scratch your back and you scratch ours.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Viserion would also be interested in talking to you as well, Mark. So we want to be as supportive as possible to local community. So something to bear in mind. I know we haven't met before. So right, fantastic. Thank you very much. That's obviously very exciting for the area, and we're hoping to see, you know, that kind of take off and be supported as much as possible. Obviously, it's got a key supporter of the LEP, which is myself. You know, if there are any issues or any other questions, then please, you know, funnel those through either Wendy, Mickey, myself, or anybody else, and we'll get those to the right people. Nigel, is it possible you could start to talk us through the local plan, because that's going to be absolutely important as we come out the other side of the pandemic. I'm just conscious that I've got about another 11 minutes before I have to dash off. So let's see if I'll leave you in the capable hands of Bernie at that stage.
Okay, thank you very much. Talking you through the local plan may take a while, but what I've got to say may be a little bit shorter at the moment. We're constantly sort of evolving or seeking to evolve the local plan, and as you probably know, because FEP and probably individuals within it have recently been making representations to a sort of broad option proposal that our members actually approved, Forest Dean members actually approved back in October. And the purpose of that was really to set an overall direction for the plan and to bring out some of the key constraints that drive the sort of how are we going to deliver what we need to deliver, how are we going to reconcile that with the climate change agenda, which is very close to the corporate agenda of the council, and how are we going to do it in terms of other environmental things we have to fitting in with our neighbours, fitting in with Gloucestershire and everything else. At the same time, of course, there's a more of a shifting ground than usual. So we've got the pandemic, we've got expectations as to how much things are moved back to normal on things like transport. We don't know whether there'll be more working from home. I rather suspect there will be. There's a new sort of shift towards perhaps more sustainable transport. Certainly people's lifestyles are going to change as a result. So at the same time as we're coping with that, we're looking at how the process of writing a local plan may change, because government are still in the throes of a review. It may well have been affected by things that have got, you know, the pandemic itself has sort of taken a lot of resource away, but there's still a possibility that the whole process will change within the life of this current plan. So what we have at the moment, and again, it's got to go through our members, Forest Dean District Council members at each stage for sort of sign off, is the broad options that we did the consultation on with your responses and everybody else's responses. And they now need to be accompanied by a whole set of refined, more detailed, different evidence, testing some of the alternatives that might have come up. And that's really a long way of saying that we expect to bring the next stage to everybody around probably very early next year now. And that will look like a local plan, but it'll still be another consultation version. The process is probably too long, but we have no choice but to go through the various hoops as they're set out at the moment. So there will be a need to do another consultation around 12 months. It'll contain more detail. It'll also have to put together the view of the local plan as the council see it. So in other words, everything's reviewed in the light of the comments we received most recently. What it looks like at the moment in terms of the option that's going forward is something that headlines, although it's not the only element, and it's actually a minority of sort of the housing component that we're going to have to find. But it headlines the concept of a new settlement within the district somewhere. The preferred option that the members supported for consultation says that that should be placed probably in the east of the district. The numbers that we suggest in that document says something like a little bit more than a quarter of the new housing, and you can then suggest other development that would flow with it would go to that new settlement. So 25-27% of this 8,000 or 7,500 or whatever we're looking at, which would then leave some component for some major strategic reinforcement, if you like, or continuation of what's going on in Lydney, what's going on in Cinderford, which includes the Northern Quarter. Probability, a very strong probability, that we would also say there are possibilities in Newent, and I'll come back to sort of reasons why and how in a moment, if I may, and also Beachley. Again, some of you will be well aware of the probability, almost certain but not guaranteed, that the MOD will be vacating the camp in by 2027. And that leaves sort of 40% of the housing and other development to be portioned across the district in the sort of most sustainable manner we can do it. And that really means that we need to address how that can be most sustainable, how it can support the existing settlements, what it'll do for transport and everything else. Because transport, I think, is one of the, and it's not just transport, it's travel, it's the need to travel, it's the alternatives, it's more sustainable travel, and it's access to things that people want to be at without travelling too far. The sort of big growth areas in the agenda. And they're there because of carbon reduction, they're there because of environmental capacity, they're there because of the need to get the most from the physical network that's, that exists. So if you can locate new development somewhere where it may not need physical infrastructure but can plumb into public transport, can be allowed to facilitate, if you like, a reduction of travel because of more home working, whatever, that's definitely what the local plan must look for, at the same time as providing, viable locations for just about everything that's on the agenda. So the consultation we've just done was based on those principles, really. We're in the middle, or hopefully towards the end, of understanding what they are and drafting responses, which we can then publish. But these will go through our own district councillors and obviously be approved by them, because ultimately it's their response to the consultation we received. So there will be a degree of revisiting the options, seeing what we want to respond, what direction the whole plan's going in. But I think the main issues aren't really going to change. So the things that the plan is trying to reconcile will be exactly the same. It will be carbon, it will be environment, it will be coping with the, I say coping with the government levels of growth that we are being suggested that we have to accommodate. It's a matter of how to apportion that, how to balance everything, and then what are going to be the new changes. Our town centre is going to look radically different. How can we accommodate changes within them? Should we let them sort of contract, if you like, in terms of the commercial activities by allowing more housing, or is it necessary to make much more flexible use of the space that may be there for sort of social interaction that may take place? It's nothing new for a plan to have lots of things in the air and to be trying to reconcile them, but I think we're probably at a stage when there's rather more up in the air that we don't know than normal, perhaps. But as I say, the drivers are going to be the accessibility, the carbon, the environment, and how you deliver against, growth ambitions for the district. They obviously haven't gone away. District Council have got very clear regen agendas. How we deliver everything else. So what I'm really saying is thank you for your continued involvement. Do ask me any questions if you've got them now. Happy to answer them. And I wish we could do it quicker, but I'm afraid it's just one of those processes that we can't do quicker than the steps that we can get through. We've got to run with the sort of strategic context of the regional agendas that you see in Wales, that you see in Gloucestershire, that you see in West of England. And we've got to produce a local plan by the end of 2023. So I think I'll just say if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them, and whether it be by email or by anything over the meeting now. So thank you.
Thanks, Nigel. I mean, it's a very difficult conversation, local plans, because we need houses and we need opportunities, but no one wants them in their backyard. So it can be a very emotive and a difficult conversation to be had. So appreciate your work on that. Obviously, the LEP is also working on its local strategy as well, and that's going to need to feed into this as well. One of the things for the FEP is to have a louder than normal voice in those conversations, because sometimes we've been kind of not party to some of the conversations, and we really want that to change. So right, any quick questions for Nigel, and then I'm going to have to disappear. Unfortunately, I'll leave you in the hands of Bernie. I think it's one that we'll continue to keep coming back on. There are some segments within that local plan which kind of need people's thoughts. I know probably Richard and Bernie are probably sick to death of some of the comments, and Chris about new settlements and some of the changes that will happen in the area. But we need to work our way through that in a way that gets the most for the area, but also keeps everybody content. So right. I can't see any questions there, Nigel. So I think we'll move on to the next subject, and then I'll make my apologies for a little while, leave you in the hands of Bernie. So the next project that we're going to talk about is with David and the Fastershire project, which is going extremely well. Anybody who wants to know, my broadband speed is 939 megabits. Just for Andrew, it drives him insane because he's just over the road from me, over the hill from me. But fast broadband is possible in the forest, and it is a key driver in economic growth. As people, continue to work from home during the current circumstances, and also provide opportunities, especially online, for people as we move away from some of the bigger companies to some startups, as we talked about before. So, Bernie, if I could leave you to host the meeting while I just disappear, we'll be back as quick as possible. And David, can you give us an update on Fastershire, please?
Yeah, not a problem, Neil. Thank you very much. So yeah, just to pick up on what Neil was saying about the value when it comes to investing in broadband infrastructure. For roads, it's about £1 in for £1 out, and there's a huge amount of debate around that. For broadband investment, they generally see for £1 invested, about £3 back. So it's a great value for money. And I think if nothing else, COVID has probably shown that there is a massive need for high-speed broadband. Obviously, people are now working from home. I think it's really shifted things. I think a lot of planning over the next 20 to 30 years has possibly going to be under the microscope. Lots of cities are suddenly asking questions about whether people are actually going to come into the office, etc. So I think regionally, I think we could win if you're not in a city. If you're in a city, especially if you're a landlord, it could be challenging times ahead, but that's the Forest of Dean for once, because that's not our problem. So to bring you up to speed with a couple of things that are happening in the area, for those of you who don't know what's going on with the Fastershire project now, they're still carrying on with their deployment of GigaClear for those people who have seen it around the area. However, they have deployed what is their stage 5 funding. So that's a community funding program. What that allows areas to do is basically approach Fastershire for funding to deploy their high-speed broadband. One of the challenges around that is the original approach to it was if there were 100 people needed to make an application, and then 100 people needed to be herded together to make all the agreements. As you can imagine, Fastershire, like all government organisations, aren't flush with money to be chasing people up to do things. So what they proposed to us is that we acted as a community group on behalf of everybody. Because we're not a government organisation, we're not a parish council, etc. So we can act on behalf of our communities to apply for that funding on their behalf and deploy it into the areas that requested it. So that brings us on to 2 projects. So the first one was Cinderford, which we tested at. The background to this is there's lots of backwards and forwards been going on in Cinderford, but unfortunately Cinderford doesn't actually count as a rural area. However, it ended up being missed out of the plan for various reasons, generally linked to the state aid rules that stop Fastershire overbuilding other providers' networks, etc. So if that network says we're going to build there, they can't overbuild it because they're not allowed to compete in the same space. So obviously they're relying on that provider to actually provide the infrastructure. What it resulted in is Cinderford missed out. So we had a gap in Cinderford. Fastershire came to us with this proposal off the back of Cinderford flagging to us that there was an issue. We had really good community support at Cinderford, within 1 or 2 people in the town council. So we managed to pull everything together, and what that's resulted in is FEP now acts on behalf of the Cinderford community with Fastershire to provide the funding, to apply for the funding on behalf of the community from Fastershire. Where we are now, Cinderford started, we had around 100 expressions of interest. That showed that there was commercial benefit to deploy a gigabit network in Cinderford. we, at the end of February, the bidding process ended. So the steps that you go through is, once we've got enough expression of interest, an area of coverage is basically designed and then put out to providers to give a costing to, and then that identifies how much funding they need from Fastershire to do it. Cinderford has worked really well. We had 3 offers. We haven't gone back to the community to review those 3 offers. But to quote, and I'm sure you won't appreciate this on a public meeting, but to quote the operations manager, Cinders will be going to the ball. So I will take that as his assessment that Cinderford will get what they need. And I think that's great news. So now would be a good time to put up a shop selling 8K TVs in Cinderford, because I think there's quite a big market for them at the moment. Everybody's upgrading. So broadly, everybody's very chuffed. I mean, I don't want to do a George Bush, mission accomplished, because there's still a few hurdles. We need to accept it. The senior officers group of the councils have to also approve the funding. So even though we may accept it, there's always a risk that they may reject it. I don't think they're likely to, but it's a risk that is out there. But once we've gone through all those hurdles, it will be a case of, we think later this year, Cinderford will be seeing a build. So that is great news. So we're hoping by end of this year, early next year, Cinderford will be super fast broadbanded up, which I think is great news. That moves us on to Churcham. Exactly the same process. Anybody who knows of the background in Churcham, they've had a fairly torrid, faster broadband rollout, again around promises being made by commercial operators to deliver high-speed broadband in that area, and then reneging on them. Because what happens is, once an organisation says that it's going to build in an area, Fastershire can't touch it. But that does mean that what happens is people around that area will see Fastershire going in and wonder why they're being avoided. So it has been a bit of a hot potato at Churcham. But the positive news is, again, we put a request to see whether people would be interested to come to a community meeting. We had over 100 requests to join from the Churcham area. So we held a meeting beginning of March. And people have made their expressions of interest. It is going to be commercially viable with support from Fastershire, we believe. So it's now on the grant portal, the supplier portal for people to bid against to build the Churcham gigabit broadband network. So although we're not at the stage where we can tell you whether anybody's going to bid for it, we do know from historic costing exercises there are building network build assessments that do fall within the scope of the funding available. So we're confident that somebody's not going to come back with a figure that we just can't fund. Again, subject to the senior officers group at Gloucestershire County Council, and I assume Herefordshire as a partnership, assuming that they're happy with it, the community's happy with it. Again, we'll hopefully be moving to the point of doing a build in Churcham. I would imagine timescales being timescales, that'll be starting end of this year and occurring at some point next year. But the long and short of it is, hopefully it will be delivered into the community. Next stage, I suppose, putting it out to everybody out there. Anybody else knows of any holes within communities that aren't going to be filled up? At the moment, there is a big build going on in the Forest of Dean. I know that there's an issue at St Bravils. They will be part of the Fastershire deployment at the moment. GigaClear are building up from Chepstow, so at some point they will pass that area. So they will get the speed that they want. But if anybody has got any gaps, just flag them, and we can ask the question whether they have actually got the network or whether they'll be part of a build. And if they haven't, we can look to do this process again with different communities. So the good news is that's my fairly rapid run through. Has anybody got any questions?
I can't see everybody, David. So if anyone's got any questions, if you could indicate.
I don't think so. Not that
I don't think so.
No,
just a couple of comments, David. Thank you for that. It's significant. The previous with Nigel, the local plan, You may be aware that Churcham is one of the issues regarding the local plan.
Yeah.
And it's significant, the number of, these people who haven't got the internet connections that they want in Churcham. I've had no end of emails from people in Churcham about the local plan, and I'm sure other members have as well. Thank you, David. For those of you who don't know, I'm Bernie O'Neill. I'm a Forest of Dean District Councillor, and my portfolio is the economy and business support is part of that. So, and I'm also vice chair of this, which is why I've taken over from Neil. So has anybody got anything else they wish to raise with David? No, I think you got off with that then, David. Thank you ever so much for that. That's a good update, and living in Cinderford, I look forward to it. Thank you.
No worries.
Right, we've now got then something I mentioned earlier as well, business discretionary grants. So I've got to introduce Andrew, Andrew Knott is our Section 151 officer of the District Council, which is, all intents and purposes, the Chief Treasurer. So Andrew, if I can hand it over to you, please.
Thank you, Councillor O'Neill. Yeah, I just briefly wanted to let people know where we were with the business grants in terms of the COVID pandemic business grants since November. So since the beginning of November, the Forest of Dean District Council have given £8.8 million worth of grants to businesses, whether that be discretionary grants or mandatory grants, as per the guidelines set out by government. The grants that were given from November come to an end in terms of when we can pay them out at the end of March. So this was just a call to everyone to sort of say, you've got to the end of March. If you think a business has been hit by COVID, whether that be the fact that the business has had to close, or whether it's actually had a knock-on effect because other businesses are closed, then there is the opportunity to apply for these grants. I will put a link into the chat of our website where all the application forms are, and all the instructions around that are. But as I say, it was just a call to arms to sort of say, could you let the network know that the business grants are there, and if they want to have them paid from November to the end of March, then they need to get the applications in by the end of March to be able to do that. There will be a new set of grants which have been announced for the restart of the business sector, that should be being paid hopefully at the beginning of April. However, we're still, although they've been announced through the budget, we're still waiting on guidance from government around who is applicable for what grants. But we're hoping we'll get that in the next week or so to be able to then process grants at the beginning of April. So as I say, it was just a quick update for everybody. And if anyone has any questions, whether that be businesses or yourselves, then by all means contact me. And I'm sure Councillor O'Neill would say exactly the same. I know we've been in constant contact around any businesses, and we can then have conversations with the team to try and process any applications where there are issues or where there are questions, or get someone from the team to contact businesses directly. So as I say, it was just a whistle-stop tour, but if anyone's got any questions, I'm more than happy to take them.
Thank you, Andrew. I see that one or two are. I'll just make a comment that, yeah, thanks for that, Andrew. I'm very grateful to you for just coming up and giving us the where we currently are. Still getting inquiries from local businesses, not sure whether they can apply or not, whether we've stopped the grants, but we haven't, and we're continuing with them. So if you do know of anybody that has got a need for a grant and they're not sure whether they are eligible or not, then if they get the application in, at least it can be assessed. And we are being reasonable about this. And there are some quite distressed people out there who have been on the phone to me, or I've phoned them. It's been quite a difficult time for a lot of people. And as I said earlier, some of them have decided to go and start their own businesses up. And one gentleman who was furloughed, then made redundant, then started his own business, and then his business couldn't operate because the business he was working in couldn't operate because the businesses he was working for were forced to close. So there's a lot of, it's very, very difficult. And there's something like 9 different schedules of grants that we're allocating as well. And as Andrew said, there is another round, but the previous round finished on the 15th of February, and we weren't told about this current, the one we're working on at the moment, till something like the 23rd, 24th of February, about what the actual criteria were. So at that space of just over a week, there were people asking, when are we going to get our grants? And we couldn't give them an answer because we didn't get the guidance from the government. And it's the same again now. 1st of April, it's a good date, isn't it? 1st of April is when the next grant should start, and we still haven't been given the guidance. But the plea is, if you know of any businesses that do need help in any way, then let us know, please. Get them to fill in the application form. Sam, I noticed you had your hand up.
Yeah, thank you for that, Bernie, and thank you to yourself, Andrew, Wendy, and all the team, really, because I deal with quite a lot of councils. I cover the FSB for Gloucestershire and the West of England, so I deal with quite a lot of councils, and I think the Forest have been really, really good at trying to get as much out as quickly as they can. But I just wondered on a general sense, because I've been talking to FSB colleagues around the country, and some councils have been absolutely inundated for all their grants, and they just don't know where to turn. But others, perhaps to my surprise, haven't been. There's certain grants that haven't been picked up and stuff, and the feeling is that it's getting a bit more complicated now about which grants people can apply for. I wonder where the Forest sat in that. Have you still got some capacity, or have you been overwhelmed by the response?
So if I answer that one, if you look at what the applications we had for the first grant scheme back in March, for the first lockdown, we haven't had as many businesses coming to us for the second lockdown and the third lockdown payments as we did in the first lockdown. Initially, we thought that was because of the fact that it was quite straightforward. The first payment, it was £10,000 for the full lockdown, therefore apply, do it. The second lockdown, we also took an approach that people had to apply for it, and at the time it was unknown how long those grants were going to be for. They were about £1,000 a month for most of the businesses in the Forest. So most businesses, I think, took the attitude that for £1,000, is it worth us actually applying? As the third lockdown kicked in and those payments got bigger, we saw more applications come in for that, and so we have seen those applications go up, but over time go back up to that level of March. I'm assuming, and this may be wrong, that if we put an application window out for the April one, the restart ones, then we may also have quite a lot of applicants. I'm hoping, and this hasn't been confirmed yet, but that we may take the same attitude as we took with the third lockdown payment, where we know these businesses now, we know what they've done, so we've actually just paid them and not got them to apply for those third lot of grants, or the third lot of grants, because we thought it was easier, and put the emphasis back on the business to tell us if they had decided to stop trading, etc., etc. But actually made the payments prior to that, because that was just a feeling that we took from a council point of view, that actually we know these businesses, they've already requested these grants, so why make them request it again?
Yeah. Thank you, Andrew. Yes, I mean, I would support that. And if what we've been doing is, obviously there have been some businesses have applied quite late on, and we have backdated through to November. So that's been, some of them have been getting £7,000 or £8,000 as a back payment, which, when I get the phone calls from those people who've had the grants, they're really pleased, because they've been, I've had this bill from so-and-so, I've had this utility bill, this to do, and it's been really very, very difficult. And the problem was that just before Christmas, of course, we were tier 3, tier 4, then lockdown. And that affected the amount of grants that some businesses were getting, because if they were forced to lock down, like hairdressers, then that was one set of criteria, one part of the criteria. But we had somebody come to us who actually sharpened the scissors for the hairdressers, who couldn't operate because the hairdressers closed down, but legally he could operate. And that was another sort of set of criteria that we had to look at. And it's not been easy, and the team have been fantastic. And I keep praising Andrew, and I mean, I'll include Wendy as well, because our officers have been absolutely brilliant, and Mickey, I'll have to mention Mickey. They've been absolutely brilliant. Andrew, I'll say it again, at about 8 o'clock one Sunday night, I sent him an email and he replied 8 o'clock on Sunday night. And then Mandy, dealing with our major grants, I sent her 3 requests on a Saturday afternoon. It's all right for me to work on a Saturday afternoon, but she replied as well on the Saturday afternoon, and she was in the office. So they've been above and beyond. Our officers have been fantastic, and can't praise them highly enough. And Andrew's disappeared again because he always gets embarrassed. Oh no, he's still there. He always gets embarrassed. But thanks to Andrew, to Wendy, to Mickey, and all our officers, they've been fantastic, and I hope it continues. But it's not been easy. Sam.
Sorry, no, it was me just clapping hands, that is. That's a clapping hand signal.
So thank you, Sam. Leanne.
Just the same from me, and to echo that, Bernie, we do with lots of village halls at GRCC, and them getting £10,000 was a massive thing for them because they operate on such small margins. So thanks for dealing with those so quickly.
Are there any other questions for Andrew or Wendy, perhaps, or about startup grants? Or I can't see everybody, but I don't think that's the case. So if we can then, thank you, move on. Next item then is, I can get on my Forest Economic Partnership update. This is Wendy. So can I hand you over to Wendy?
Thank you, Bernie.
Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you. We can move to the first next slide for me. Thank you, Mickey. So this is our usual update, just to say what the board has been up to in general sort of FEP news, really, just to give you all a heads up of what's happened since the last time we spoke to you all. Nice to see a few new faces on the call as well this afternoon. So welcome if it's your first time to a stakeholder group meeting. I hope you'll sign up to join as a stakeholder so you can receive our regular communications. So hit our website so that you can register for those, and we'll be able to keep you informed with our blogs and any news that comes out as we go along. So please do that. I just wanted to flag for you the current board members. We are a band of 7 at the moment. So recently Ray Cotton stepped away from the board, but we had a new nominee in Rob Jenkins from the LEP. So we were briefly an 8, but we're back down to a 7. But this is, as ever, this is the advert really, that if anybody would like to come along and join us from the stakeholder group to join us, please do. We tend to meet somewhere between every 6 to 8 weeks thereabouts to try and keep on top of our current project activity and other opportunities that are coming along. So if you'd like to find out more about that, then please get in touch with us. We have recently tasked all the board directors to do a bit of a skills assessment on themselves, a sort of self-scoring exercise, just to look at the skills that we're looking for the board. So we've done that, and we've identified a few gaps amongst the 7 of us. So as we say there, we're specifically looking for folks that have got a particular background or area of expertise around law, accounting, and specifically social enterprise, community interest company governance and activity. So this is again a bit of a call really. If you know anybody through your own networks that may be interested to give their time to join this voluntary organisation, then we'd love to hear from you, so we can give you a briefing about what's involved if you'd like to hear more. Next slide, Mickey, please. So this is just a quick heads up in terms of where we are financially as an organisation. It's all looking very healthy, so happy to report we've got a good £15,000, a little bit more in the bank account. The bulk of that, as you can see there, is allocated to our Inspiring Forest project. So that's made up largely of grant aid from Forest of Dean District Council and from the LEP. As we reported last time, this project's hit a bit of a wall, I'm afraid, because for those of you who don't know about it, it's really intended to be a skills event targeted at working with the schools and colleges, really to inspire young people and their families about what opportunities there may be for careers after school life, and just what you know, what type of jobs there may be out there available across the different and many varied sectors in the forest, so they can start to think about perhaps a local career choice and to stay here after they've completed their education. So we are planning to do some events, but they were all planned to take place in school, and of course COVID has put the block on that. And I know that the schools having only just gone back this week, talking about putting on external events is not uppermost on their agenda just at the moment. So we're probably going to need to pick this up in the new financial year, and we've got permission to roll forward our funding from the Forest of Dean District Council anyway into next year. So we won't lose funding to bring that project forward. So I just wanted to underline that for everybody. There's no threat of losing that funding for this year. So we've also got a small pot of money we call core funding, and that's really just to cover costs like our web content or web platform. It's to pay for things like surveys and our accountancy costs, etc. So we've just got a small amount in hand. But we, again, anybody that's got any tips or advice about potential sources of funding for sponsorship or match funding, we'd love to talk to you. So we could always do with help to help top up that particular pot. Next slide, please. I just also wanted to touch on, there are a couple of other general points of news, and I've just jotted down a wee note for myself, so apologies. I'm just going to read from that as I speak to you. The first one's around cross-border working, and we have featured this within our website to report the sad death of Councillor David Dovey from Monmouthshire Council. David was most recently the chair of their strategic transport group and had been attending pretty steadily our transport infrastructure bridges and borders subgroup to sort of maintain information flow, and he was a really good partnership worker, and to link between what we're doing in the Forest of Dean and across to Monmouthshire, and shared issues around Chepstow, for example, and the traffic issues there. David was really good at that. He will be he's going to be sorely missed as we go forward, but I've left a good amount of grace before I contacted Monmouthshire to ask them if they'd be happy to identify a replacement for David. I'm happy to report that County Councillor Jane Pratt, who's the current chair of their strategic transport group and also she's their cabinet member for infrastructure and neighbourhood services, is happy to come along to the next transport meeting, which is likely to be week commencing the 17th of May, I think. I don't think we've nailed a date for that yet, but that's in May. And Councillor Pratt's going to be joined by one of their senior officers, Roger Hoggins, who's their head of strategic projects. So just a bit of news about continuing connection there with Monmouthshire. Next is around, I wanted to talk about the board member training as well. Back to this skills assessment that we asked the board members to have a look at. We are collaborating with Gloucestershire Growth Hub to organise a tailored training session for the FEP board members. And we've put together a programme working with a chap called Rod Horrocks from the Growth Hub to come and help us tackle some of those gaps in knowledge that we currently have, but particularly to emphasise community interest company governance and to prioritise legal responsibilities and compliance needs, so that we are acting properly in all that we do. So we'll be having a look at that. We've also flagged as a board that we need to look more carefully at equality and diversity as a board. So we are looking at board composition, and I've already given you the advert, so I won't repeat myself. But if we can get if we can get more people to come along, particularly perhaps from a younger and more ethnically diverse background, that would be great. So I'm all ears if anybody wants to talk to me about that. Next one is around, it's just a bit of a promotion really for something that one of our stakeholders, Ian Mean, director at Business West and obviously a director at the Local Enterprise Partnership. Ian's busy trying to put together a new webinar that's going to be talking about Western Gateway and what this new organisation will mean for the Forest of Dean, what implications, benefits could there be for us being a part of this new powerhouse that links from all the southwest, Swindon, Wiltshire, Bristol, all the way around to South Wales. Ian's busy putting together a date for that, but we think that's currently going to take place on the 24th of May. It's a morning session, 10 o'clock till 11:30, and it will be open for everybody to dial in and observe that. The panel is going to consist of Neil Ricketts is happy to join that. Andrew Callard is going to join as Director of Rural Technologies Limited. Councillor Patrick Molyneux from Gloucestershire County Council, Councillor Tim Gwilliam, Leader of Forest of Dean District Council, and most importantly, I guess, Catherine Bennett, the Chair of Western Gateway, is going to be there to say exactly what they're doing and what impacts she thinks could be coming across for the forest. And then lastly, I just wanted to flag up, we've only recently been contacted, it's just another survey request really, but Brunel University London, their business school have been in touch with us to take part in a survey that they're doing nationally around social enterprise in the UK. So the work is really looking to understand how social enterprise is going to rise to the current challenge globally to solve economic, social and environmental issues, particularly considering the economic uncertainty around in the UK and globally at the moment following the pandemic. So the university is happy to share the output, the report paper from that with us, so we can get hold of an exec summary. So we'll be taking part in that survey this month, and we'll share with you probably through the website the results of that. So keep eyes peeled for that. And that's all I had. Thank you on my update.
Thank you, Wendy, for that again. That's helpful. And I hope people have taken note of it. And can I open it up for questions if anyone's had any questions as to where we currently are? Nobody? Okay, well, Neil's not back, so the last item on the agenda then is the dates for the next meeting, stakeholder meeting dates 2021, which are the 11th of June, 2 till 4. These are all some of them might be on Zoom, some of them depends on what happens now, but certainly we're looking at the 11th of June as a Zoom meeting, then the 10th of September and the 10th of December. So with that, can I just emphasize that there are a number of people who put some things on chat, including Andrew Knott has put a contact details regarding business grants. If anyone knows of anyone who needs and wants a business grant, they could let us know. And we also put out, I think it's 2 weekly now, Wendy, the Business Matters. And I think the Federation of Small Business also with Sam are putting stuff out as well. So if all the links will be on Business Matters, it goes out every couple of weeks. And I'm pretty sure that Federation of Small Businesses as well. Wendy, did you want to come in?
Yeah, just also to say, Bernie, we obviously have the FEP monthly newsletter, so we'll in April we'll pull together some of what's been said today. Obviously, it'll be a little bit too late for Andrew's, spending the last of the grants that are currently available, which we need to get the discretionary ones that need to be allocated before the end of this month. But we will be able to say a bit more perhaps there about everything you've heard today. So yeah, watch out for the April newsletter.
Thank you, Wendy. I don't know if you wanted to add anything, Sam, to what I've just said about Federation of Small Businesses.
No, other than we'll continue to support all the initiatives that you're doing. So
Okay.
yeah, just keep them coming.
Okay, excellent. Well, with that, you've had the dates for your diary. Can I thank you all for joining us? And I know I say this at every meeting, have a safe journey home. Thank you all very, very much. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bernie.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Bernie.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks. Bye. Out of it.
Thanks from Laurie here.
There we go. Another job done. I take it these two are gone.
I presume so. Thank you.
Yeah, brilliant. See you soon, Mickey.
Yeah.
I think we've got something on next Friday, haven't we? It's the communications group next week, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is it
Yeah,
next week?
it is. Yeah, 19th. Yeah, next Friday.
2 o'clock. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah. Lovely. I'll see you there.
I'll see you there.
Okay. I'll send you the. I may
Yeah,
not get that done today, so it might be next week. Is that okay?
That's fine. I finish at 4 anyway, so.
Yeah. Yeah. What is
Yeah,
the time?
if you just we got a bit of time. Just share it to me, we transfer it to me, and I'll sort it out. Thank you.
Hokey cokey. I'll get that through to you. I might even get it done today, but if I don't, it'll be next week.
Yeah, that's fine.
Lovely.
Neil's going to come back from school run and realize everyone's left.
Yeah. Never mind. He'll be fine.
Yeah.
See you now.
See you later.